So I think the most disappointing team in the NBA this season was probably the Houston Rockets, as a lot of people, including myself, believed that they would be a legitimate title contender as they made the Western Conference last year, and they only got seemingly better by acquiring Ty Lawson to relieve James Harden of some ball handling duties. Well, Ty Lawson was awful. James Harden's defense and effort regressed, although it did pick up later in the season. And Kevin McHale was fired, and there were questions about the team's effort, the defense, and they just had the appearance of a team that once they got down 7 or 10 points, they just kind of put their heads down and they said, well, screw it, we're going to lose this game, which was a drastic contrast to last year, where they were a team with very high effort, carried by James Harden, defenders all around him. James's defense was still pretty decent, and like I said, they got all the way to the conference finals. Well, if we look at the Rockets right now, I think the first thing they're really going to need is a head coach who can just get these guys to, I don't want to question professional athletes' effort, but get them to just care a little bit more, you know? I think Jeff Van Gundy is the type of guy who can do that. Tom Thibodeau would have been perfect, but he's in Minnesota now. I think that's the first step for this Rockets team, because in terms of personnel, they're not that much different than the team that went to the conference finals. So it's not like it's a talent issue. But that being said, I do think they need to make some personnel changes. The starting five, I'm not too against what they got going. I really like Patrick Beverley next to James Harden, that high-effort defensive player who doesn't have to have the ball in their hand all the time, as James Harden is the primary ball handler. Trevor Ariza is still a quality 3-and-D player. Now, of course, we have to ask, is Dwight Howard going to be there next year? Apparently not. There's word that he is going to be opting out, which is going to free up quite a bit of salary for you. And if Dwight Howard decides to opt out, and like I said, apparently there's a decent chance of that happening, the Rockets would have $42 million in salary cap to enter free agency. Holy hell. Because, we assume the cap's going to jump up to about $90 million. If I got that much money, I'm going for a star, okay? And I realize the Rockets barely made the postseason, but when you already have an established top 10 player in James Harden, it gets a little easier to draw in a star player, And of course, if Dwight is leaving, look, I'm just saying, Hassan Whiteside's an unrestricted free agent. You have to imagine he'd be willing to go for as much money as possible. I would definitely try. Throw the kitchen sink at Hassan Whiteside, see if you'll get him back. Now, I do think Clint Capella can be a decent center, but Whiteside's going to average a double-double for the next 7 years, so that's an option for you in free agency. If you can't get Whiteside, there is Al Horford. I don't know if Horford would leave Atlanta to choose to go to Houston. I don't know, maybe he would. These are just options if you decide that Clint Capella is not the answer for you at center. He's looked good when he's in there, and in fact, the Dwight Howard-Clint Capella lineup, while not used that often, was pretty damn effective, so Capella's got value. But besides the center spot, their power forward position really has not been solidified yet. Monty Eunice was pretty legit about 2 years ago, but since the injury, he hasn't been the same guy. They traded him to the Pistons and they didn't pass his physical, They've also attempted Terrence Jones, which did not stick. Josh Smith is miles away from the Josh Smith in Atlanta. I don't know what the hell happened to that Josh Smith. So I think in free agency, if they were going to look for a power forward, which I would probably do, I like Marvin Williams in Charlotte. He's kind of become like a not as good Draymond Green. Small ball 4, can stretch the floor out, decent defender. Again, he's nowhere near Draymond Green. I think he could be effective for Houston. Hopefully he isn't just having an out-of-body experience because it's a contract year. Hopefully he can maintain this. But I like the idea of Marvin Williams. Of course, there's also Michael Beasley, who's had a bit of a bounce back in the NBA. He had a really legit March for Houston. 15 points, shot well from the field and 3. He's kind of a hybrid power forward and small forward, but he could definitely give you minutes at the 4 spot. Another guy who could stretch the floor for James Harden. I don't know how good of a defender Beasley is. I would say Marvin Williams is a better defensive player than him, though. But also with the Rockets, I think they shouldn't look over the idea of giving Montrezl Harrell as well as KJ McDaniels more minutes. A reputation that both those guys have is playing really frickin' hard and That's half the problem with this Houston team is they don't play hard enough. You get a guy like KJ in there running up and down the floor like a maniac, throwing the ball down and dunking and blocking shots and missing three-pointers, it'll be great. Now, unfortunately for Houston, they don't have their draft pick. That's going to the Nuggets, so as a result, they're not going to get any freebies in the draft. So they're really going to have to nail it in free agency. Like I mentioned, I would go for Whiteside. Just go for the home run, you know? There's Mike Conley as well, but I think James Harden should still be the primary ball handler. They've had success with that in the past. If you can't get Whiteside, go for Al Horford. I mean, you could call up Kevin Durant, but I'm pretty sure he's just going to re-sign in OKC for 1 year. But if you can't get any star player, there are some good things. I think Clint Capella can be a good center for you. I also think there are a couple of centers out there who are known for their energy, guys like Zaza Pachulia, Joakim Noah. I don't know if Noah is still a legitimate starter in the NBA, but I mean, the guy averaged like 9 rebounds a game coming off the bench for the Bulls. He was still good defensively before his injury. You think Joakim Noah wouldn't help out the Rockets when it comes to defense and hustle? They really got to nail it in free agency. They have James Harden, who's an established star player. Go for the home runs, but there's also some good two-way defenders and high-effort guys you can go for. I hope they get Jeff Van Gundy because I think he's the type of coach who can instill a culture that will really work for them. So that's going to do it. Shout out to the Houston Rockets. Shout out to James Harden's barber, and I'm done.